Hello, everyone. We want to welcome you to this Chattanooga Times Free Press WRCB Mayoral runoff debate. We appreciate you watching and we appreciate our participants this evening. I wanted to tell you, first of all, about the rules of engagement for this evening. Now, both candidates will be participating, of course, tonight. We have Tim Kelly and Kim White. Each of them will be given 2 minutes to make an opening statement. And we will have several of the questions this evening that will be presented by citizens of the Chattanooga area. We'll be asking questions that have been submitted online. Now, each candidate will be given 1 minute to respond to each question, and then a 30-second rebuttal will be offered to the candidate who answered first. When there are 15 seconds left, the candidates will hear a little ding and see a reminder that their time has expired. And the time begins when each candidate starts speaking. Once a time has expired at the end of an answer, we do allow the candidate to complete a sentence, but not start a new thought. Each candidate will get a 1 minute closing statement at the end of this hour. And my fellow moderator, Dave Lester, and I may ask questions sometimes if a statement needs clarifying. Candidates may not use the internet, cell phone, or any other outside assistance. And they, of course, will be answering our questions in just a moment. Earlier today, we had a coin flip to decide who receives the first question, and Kim White was the winner of that coin flip, so she will have the first word of the debate, and later on this evening, Tim Kelly will have the final word. Dave?
For our forum tonight, we ask the Chattanooga Times Free Press and WRCB TV, our viewers and our readers, what questions that they would like to ask our mayoral candidates. We received nearly 300 suggested questions. While we probably won't be able to ask all of those in the next hour, we do want to begin to ask as many as we can. But before David and I begin asking questions of our candidates, we want to provide them an opportunity to make a brief opening statement. As David said, Kim White was selected to go first earlier. So Ms. White, you have 2 minutes for your opening statement.
Super. Thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. I'm Kim White, and I'm humbly asking for your vote to be Chattanooga's mayor. While I didn't always realize it, this is a job I've been preparing for my entire life. I was born to 17-year-old parents. I saw them sacrifice and work hard to grow a family and build a middle-class life. I grew up in Hickson, graduated from Hickson High School, and lived at home while I worked my way through UTC. I left Chattanooga after college, and in my time away, found my career path, and as well as my husband of 32 years, Joe Dan. In 2003, we chose to come back home, and like so many of you, I had to start over. I didn't have business or political connections or a family business to run. I had to roll up my sleeves and find a way in a city that I love, and I have done that. I've been blessed with great business experience, from leading in a Fortune 500 company to the last 11 years leading a great nonprofit River City company, working with others to make Chattanooga a better place. I know what it's like to have to meet a payroll and balance budgets. I have a track record of success recruiting $1.2 billion of investment and thousands of jobs to our city. I know how to get things done, but I have never forgotten where I came from. And that keeps me grounded in the values of everyday Chattanoogans: hard work, compassion, great neighborhoods, and never settling for just good enough. You want your mayor to hit the ground running, and I have the experience and the day one playbook to do that. Day one, we'll begin our COVID recovery plan. We'll put in our place the new Office of Small Business Support, and we'll get to work in neighborhoods. We're going to start taking care of basics like paving roads and picking up litter. And boy, do we have a lot of improvements to make on that end. We'll put together a talented and diverse team reflective of our city. I know when to listen, and I know when to lead. Our challenges are also our opportunities. I'm asking you to join the thousands of Chattanoogans from every part of our city who have joined our campaign. I would greatly appreciate your support and your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim White. Tim Kelly, your opening statement.
Thank you. I want to start by thanking you guys for TFP and WRCB for hosting this valuable debate. I was born here in Chattanooga as well. I was raised here. I went away to college in New York for 4 years, came back and spent the next 30 years working not only in the small business community, but in the nonprofit community. I built my life here. I raised my sons here, Jack and Cannon. And very frankly, my wife Jenny and I still live in Fort Wood, just up the street. So look, 30 years here, taught me both the value of hard work and small business, but working in the nonprofit community, I got to see all sides of Chattanooga from top to bottom, from side to side, and got to the point where I realized after 30 years here that we simply had not made enough progress. And the political events of the last few years brought me to a point where I realized I'd had to throw my hat in the ring if I thought I could do a better job. I have no further political ambition. I should mention that. I am a steadfastly nonpartisan guy. I don't think nonpartisan races come with a wink and a nod. I don't know what the point would be if they did. And my sole ambition is to move Chattanooga forward and make this the city that it can be, which is to say the greatest city in the country. But we've been sweeping difficult issues under the rug here for many, many years and far too long. And I think it's going to take somebody without future political ambition to tackle these hard things and keep them on the table. The city has got to recover from COVID stronger than ever. And I'm the only candidate in this race who has created jobs, hundreds of jobs, and met payrolls with my own money. And I know how to handle a crisis, and we're certainly in one. We have to recover from COVID. We have to move in much bolder ways on education, and we have to do more in neighborhood development. Chattanooga can't just be about a small portion of downtown. It has to be about the entire city and creating one Chattanooga together.
All right, thank you. And as determined by the coin toss earlier today, Kim White will be the first respondent to this question. And then Tim will have a minute to respond. And if desired, then a 30-second rebuttal will be offered to the candidate who answers first. Kim White, here we go. Chattanooga is a city of haves and have-nots, of private schools and failing schools, dynastic families, downtrodden families. How will your policies ensure that lower and middle class families have more opportunity to advance their socioeconomic status, and that your policies would not favor Chattanooga's wealthy?
Yeah, thank you for that question, David. One of the things that really propelled me to run for office is the fact that I saw that there are so many missed opportunities in our city. I have been out in the neighborhoods talking to neighborhood leaders and to families, talking about what they want to see. And I'm so excited about the opportunity to really jumpstart job growth. What I've been hearing is that we need to support small businesses. We need to bring opportunities. The mayor is the #1 salesperson of the city, and I've done that. I've recruited $1.2 billion of investment to downtown. What we need to do is have other investments in other parts of our cities. So I'm going to work in the neighborhoods, working with small businesses, working to make sure that we bring opportunities, making sure that we bring investment to the neighborhoods with the youth and family development centers, coming alongside Dr. Johnson in the school system to make sure that we show paths to success. And that's internships, apprenticeship programs. So all of my policies have been based on making sure that we bring equity to our city. There is definitely parts of our city that have been left behind. I have a very robust affordable housing policy. I believe with my background with real estate and development, knowing how to get things done in partnership, we plan to bring 700 units of affordable housing during my first term in office. And that's by leveraging city assets, working in partnership, and really streamlining processes. One of the things that's been so frustrating is people want to see a city government that's easy to do business with, and we aren't there.
All right. I should point out, by the way, that question was submitted by a Chattanooga resident. Tim Kelly, your answer.
Look, my entire campaign is about creating one Chattanooga. This is the reason I'm running. We've had the gaps between rich and poor, between black and white and Chattanooga are far too broad, and they've been that way for far too long. And it's going to take bold leadership to bring the city together and close those gaps. This is what my entire agenda is based on. Look, I didn't come from old money in Chattanooga. My grandfather was born on Sand Mountain and worked his way up through the ranks. And I worked my way up through the ranks in my business. And it's going to take a focus on equity in particular to really provide opportunity for all of Chattanooga. And that's what my campaign is about. It starts with early childhood education, which is the most important long-term thing that we can do for our children here. And I would dramatically expand our childhood education seats, but also skilled trade training. Everybody remembers Kirkland very fondly here. And I would dramatically work with the Hamilton County School System to expand skilled trades. But listen, I think it's a critically important part of what makes Chattanooga's future very, very important in terms of the future political leader, the next mayor of the city.
On election day, we won't only be voting for either Tim Kelly or Kim White. We're really going to be electing a new team of leaders at City Hall. Each of you have indicated your desire to keep David Roddy as the police chief, but can you speak to the team that you would like to bring or keep at City Hall, the executives that you would like to keep who are there now, and how will you ensure that you reflect the diversity of Chattanooga? Mr. Kelly, this question to you first. Who's on your team?
Yes, look, I think this is one of the most valuable things about me as a candidate, because I say a lot, the value of a small business person, a small business owner and an entrepreneur in a role like this isn't necessarily we understand business better. It's that we understand organizational management better. And I have hired and managed hundreds of people, my own employees that I've hired and trained and motivated with my own money. And so I know a thing or two about managing large organizations. The city is the 9th largest employer in the region, with almost 2,600 employees. And if I've learned one thing in 30 years of business, it's how to attract and retain the best talent. And really, that is going to be what determines the future of this city. It's not about the mayor as much as it is about the team that mayor can build and the qualifications of those folks. I will say that my commitment to equity is steadfast. It will look like the community, and so it will be 40% minority represented in the city and in my cabinet.
Ms. White?
Yes, thank you, Dave. Yes, and I have been a very strong proponent of keeping Chief Roddy and making sure that we have the best of the best at City Hall. I too have built some fantastic teams, and I am going to do the same thing at City Hall. We're going to go in and empower employees that are there. We're going to streamline processes. We're going to make sure that we have the right people in the seats, and we're already working on a transition team. I have a lot of people that we're talking to that are in jobs now, people that maybe used to be at the city that aren't, that would love to come back. But we're going to make sure that we have the right seats, the talented seats, and we're going to reflect the diversity of our community. I've made a commitment to do that, and I also think that that's very important. But I think to go in, we want to talk to the employees and just talk about what talent we have there. But I have a history not only of building successful teams, but really working with our partners to see what some of those gaps are. I think that City Hall should be streamlined, and we all look at partners that are in the community doing great work that really can be added to advisory committees. I think another thing that we need to look at are the boards that we actually put people on, and we make sure that those also fit the diversity of our community, and we're committed to do that also.
All right, for those of you who are just tuning in, we are engaged in a mayoral runoff debate with Tim Kelly and Kim White for the April 13th election. Early voting starts March 24th. And again, I want to emphasize that each candidate is given a minute to answer these questions. You don't have to take the entire minute if you don't have a minute.
David, I might mention very briefly, we're not hearing the timer on this end, so we're keeping time here on our own. But
okay. All right. So far, I think we're on task. And okay. we should, by the way, also remind you that we are offering a rebuttal to the first candidate. We may have skipped over that once, and our apologies.
You did. You did.
All right. This one is for Kim White first. Substandard housing is a significant social driver affecting the health and well-being of children and families in several zip codes in Chattanooga. Specifically, what is your plan to cut red tape and improve affordable housing opportunities for working and low-income families?
Yeah, David, thank you so much for that question. I think one of the things that we know we're going to be able to move the needle on is affordable housing. In our plan, we have a plan to bring 700 units of affordable housing online. Part of that is we're going to use city properties. City has over 400 back tax derelict properties that need to be back on the tax rolls. We're going to utilize those. We're going to look at some of the codes. Right now, we don't even allow garage apartments or duplexes in some of these neighborhoods. So I think there's a lot of things that we can do to make it easier to build good quality affordable housing. We also plan to put $2 million a year into an affordable housing fund and really leverage that to work with banks and other nonprofits to build that up. But the city has a lot of tools in the toolbox that they haven't used. I think with my background with real estate and development, working with partners like Chattanooga Neighborhood Enterprise that has already put together a tremendous framework that we can hit the ground running. And in fact, that's what we talk about in my day one playbook, is that we are going to hit the ground running on our affordable housing piece, because we know that's a huge piece. Thank you. All right,
Tim Kelly, same question for you. And this question, by the way, came from one of our local citizens.
Great. Well, look, I think it's one of those, it's been said before that if you want to know what somebody's going to do, look at what they've done. I've worked very closely with the nonprofit community and the foundation community here on affordable housing issues, and would continue to do that. I think we have some tremendous opportunity here to do some amazing things with direct impact investment, with foundation endowment funds, partnering with the city and creating pools of capital to create these things. This is a supply and demand problem ultimately. Kim's right about that. It's too difficult to do housing in the city, and we have to increase the supply of housing in order for housing to be affordable. So I would work both on code and ordinance reform here to make it easier for builders to build, but also work with the nonprofit community and the state and the THDA to bring in the investment needed to create affordable housing. We have a terrible problem. I did a press conference today on an eviction problem that's leading to epidemic homelessness. And this is going to be the most pressing problem we face in the new administration.
You have the opportunity for a rebuttal.
I would just say that I think the affordable housing piece is one that we feel very confident we can hit the ground running on. We've put a plan in place, and I think 700 units of housing is the number I mentioned. If we do get the money from the federal government, that looks like we are going to get from the Biden administration, we can scale that up and make an even bigger impact. So affordable housing is a piece that we know that we can make an impact in.
A number of our citizens who viewers and readers wanted to ask your thoughts and ideas about social injustice and the police reform and the Black Lives Matter movement. And it's gained such traction across the country this year. And what do you think Chattanooga stands? How are we in this movement now? And what would specifically as mayor would you do to try to address the ongoing racial inequalities in Chattanooga? Kim White, can you answer first?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Dave. I think when you look at what we're talking about in our public safety policy, it is trying to give more tools in the toolbox. I give Chief Roddy a lot of credit for what he's done proactively, but we've had some tough conversations, and we need to have police officers that look more like the diversity of the neighborhoods that they're actually in. That's why it's going to take more resources. We need to give police officers raise. We need to give them opportunity for better training. We need to be able to recruit the best of the best, and we're losing so many of those right now. We need to have tough conversations. And in order to do that, police officers have to have the ability to get out of their car. So I believe it does start with communication and conversation. This past year has been impacted so much because of COVID. Those conversations are few and far between. That's why we need to hit the ground running when we can and actually jumpstart some of these discussions when we can all start meeting again. But I think it all boils down to community trust. And it just takes conversations, more tough conversations to do that. But I'm committed to have those. I know Chief Roddy's committed to do that also. And that's going to be an ongoing conversation in our community for a while.
Mr. Kelly, your response?
Yes, the events of this summer were obviously very disturbing. I must say I was proud of the way the community activists in Chattanooga and our Chattanooga Police Department handled it. We managed to make them protests and not riots, and it was very civil and I thought largely constructive. But look, all of our plans and our extensive plans, which we've had published for months on our website, over 12 platforms, were developed with an equity lens with community leaders around Chattanooga. And I'm the only candidate in this race with a specific plan for the African-American community called A Better Way Forward. And it's an extensive plan, which I encourage everybody to look at on my website, which has to do with not only healing this gap in trust between the police department and the African-American community here, but also building wealth in that community and really getting back to a healthy middle class. And again, bridging this gap to create one Chattanooga from unfortunately, the two Chattanoogas we have today.
You're at time.
All right, I'd like to rebuttal. I would like to say that I'm not arrogant enough to go into the Black community and say I have a plan for your community. What I've been doing is going into the community, and what they've told me is they want me to bring tools. They want to see the city bring tools to actually help lift them up. So we've been working in the community since I announced in September. And I think the last thing they want is for me to come in there and tell them how to actually build wealth. What we want to do is give them the tools to do that. And we're prepared to do that with our job recruitment, our small business support, our job training, workforce training, and really show a path forward. And I think that's what people want to see is hope and opportunity.
All right, thank you very much. And you are hearing a voice in the background instead of
Yeah.
chimes when the time is expiring this evening. Our chime is out of order. All right, we have a couple of citizens who have asked this particular question, and Tim Kelly, you'll go first on this. Chattanooga is special, but we run the risk of being overrun with development like Asheville, Nashville, and Atlanta. Will you do something to stop, in the opinion of these people who are asking, the overdevelopment that is suffocating our city? Condos and apartments sit empty and unsold, yet lots are still being developed. Downtown workers cannot afford to buy them or pay the high rent. So the question is, are we overdeveloping and building too many apartments Chattanooga residents cannot afford?
The simple answer to that is yes. Unfortunately, there's some unintended consequences to the Federal Opportunity Zone Act that's caused speculative development downtown, and that has created what I hope isn't, but may very well become a bubble. And look, I mean, we've had too much focus on downtown. Downtown's great, and downtown will always be our downtown, and it's important that downtown be healthy. But we've got to put more focus on the neighborhoods and on the health and the vitality of our neighborhoods. If you take a drive down Rossville Boulevard or take a drive down Brainerd Road, it's not a pretty sight. And those were once very proud and vibrant neighborhoods in Chattanooga. So the answer to the person's question is yes, and it is something that the mayor is going to have to navigate. It's not a simple job to navigate between the interests of development and regulation. We need both, but we have to have somebody who's seen both and can manage both wisely and well. And I know I can do that.
Well, I have a totally different perspective. We do need more development. You ask any realtor in town, we're totally out of inventory. We have people coming here. The issue is we need to have smart development and we need to have planned development. We have decided with Austin with 120 acres. We have Wheeling Foundry with 110 acres. We need to make sure that we develop in the right way. So part of the issue with Atlanta and Asheville and Nashville is that they haven't kept up with the infrastructure. We have a strong infrastructure plan to make sure that we're growing smartly, working with the county to make sure that we take care of future growth. But downtown apartments, contrary to popular belief, are about 70 to 80% full, and there's more being built, but we need all kinds of housing, and that's why in my affordable housing plan, we're talking about bringing on affordable housing, but we have a lot of opportunity for growth. We need to do it smartly. If we don't have development and growth, taxes will increase. So my plan is to make sure that we can increase investment in this community in a smart way and do it in a way that actually brings value to our city. But we're going to be developing, and we need more development. And development is not a bad word.
Tim Kelly, do you have a rebuttal?
Yes, look, again, I'm the only business owner and entrepreneur in this race. I understand development and I understand business. I've started many small businesses on my own, which include the development of properties around them. I understand development, and we definitely do need development. But we don't need to be the stool pigeons of developers who only care about their interests to be able to build something, flip it out to real estate investment trusts. We have to have development that serves the interest of the community and is well planned and wisely planned and benefits the entire community outside of just a small portion of downtown that is done in the neighborhoods and done in the right way to serve the interests of the entire community.
One reader suggests that there's been a lot of road improvements in downtown, but thinks perhaps the rest of Chattanooga has been a bit neglected in the paving area. I know both of you have advocated anywhere from $3 million to $3.5 million of additional funding for road improvements in your respective budgets if you're elected mayor. Is that adequate enough to address the city road needs? And specifically, how would you prioritize the way Chattanooga spends its money on road improvements in the future? Mr. Kelly, you first. How do we prioritize road paving?
Well, look, it's important that we have a plan, first of all. Right now, we don't even have a written plan. We would publish an actual schedule. And we believe, based on the budget and what we're looking at budgetarily and planning wise, by negotiating new contracts and using new methods, we can pave more roads this summer than any summer in the last 20 years. The priorities are going to be established by need, and there's a lot of need. I mean, I've knocked on hundreds of doors in Chattanooga and talked to thousands of voters, and everybody gets a kick out of that ad, but it's the truth. The need is pressing, and when people pay their taxes, the least they should expect is smooth roads. I know Kim agrees with me on this, but look, this is a management exercise principally. It's about deploying public works to fix the problem in an orderly way and being transparent and accountable to the taxpayers so that people can look at a schedule and expect to know when their road's going to be fixed. And we will do exactly that.
You're at time.
Ms. White, your
All
response.
right, Dave. Yes, people are right. I mean, everywhere I go, people are talking about roads. So we have kicked the can for a long time. $3 million is really just a starting point. And no, it's not adequate because we have so much deferred maintenance. It is starting with a plan, but it's also looking at leveraging state dollars, which we haven't done. It's also looking at what's going to be coming down from the federal government. We have a great opportunity with President Biden's administration to really look at how we can invest more in infrastructure, and we plan to do that. There is an analysis being done right now on all the roads. I plan on working with city council members as partners as we really develop priorities for each specific neighborhood. But we are way behind the curve on that. So it's adding dollars to it, but it's really using them smartly. Right now, the budget that we're spending on paving, on striping it's a large budget for striping that needs to be put back into the paving budget. So we need to get back down to basics. I think that if we could pave roads and pick up litters, we would have a lot of happy people in Chattanooga.
Jim Kelly, any rebuttal?
Just briefly, I would just say that if you look at the bill as it's written, the road construction is not eligible. Infrastructure investments in broadband expansion, water and sewer are eligible. That said, we can still find the money to meet these goals. And again, that money coming from the federal government will be critically important. But we won't be able to use them for road improvements.
Our next question comes from a Chattanooga citizen, and it will go to Kim White first. You both have had roles recruiting and luring investors to downtown Chattanooga. What is your plan to ensure investments to the parts of Chattanooga that rarely see this new development? And the citizen listed East Chattanooga in particular.
Yeah, we have a great opportunity to look at city assets and city properties. Right now, if you took an overlay of what the city and the county own, I think we have an opportunity to leverage some of those to get more investment in those neighborhoods. It really starts with planning, and that has been my background for the past 11 years, is working with the community to develop a plan and actually look at how we actually bring investment there. I would give you an example of the Walmart store that just closed. We have a great opportunity with the airport expansion to really sit down with that community and look at how we attract another grocery store or another type retailer that can come out in and be a benefit. But you've got to show some public investment, some private investment in order to attract some more investment. So our plan has been based on neighborhood, it's community up, and we have a lot of opportunity to go and bring additional resources and investment in every part of our city.
Tim?
That sounds familiar. That is very much the plan that we've been working on since day one in our campaign, is putting focus on neighborhoods and neighborhood development. I know East Chattanooga well in particular, and whether it's East Lake all the way out to Glass Street. I rode up and down Rossville Boulevard every day for 25 years and still do to my business down on Workman Road. And it's a sad sight. The good news is there's a lot of opportunity there for development, but again, we've got to get the focus back on the neighborhoods and create the investment in the public and the private investment to get those neighborhoods turned around. And it starts with creating a belief in them and a confidence that it can be done. There are a lot of opportunities here across the city, which should make Chattanoogans very excited, because we can turn this city around and make it the greatest city in the country with the right leadership.
All right, Kim White, do you have anything?
One of the main reasons I left River City Company in order to run for mayor is that I saw so many opportunities in other parts of our city. And I wanted to use my successful track record of what I've done in downtown to bring it to every single part of our city. It starts with planning and community engagement. And since I kicked off my campaign in September, that's where I've spent my time. It's in the neighborhoods, listening to families, workers, trying to understand the priorities. We have so much opportunity to get neighborhood buy-in and start getting investment, but that's been what my campaign has been entirely about.
You're at time.
A number of citizens wanted us to ask a little bit about your own experience working with low-income and minority neighborhoods. Will each of you candidates describe in detail your history of working in and with minority neighborhoods, what impact that's had on those neighborhoods and on you individually, and what steps would you take to work with the African-American community to bring the historic divisions of race and equality better in line in Chattanooga? And we'll start out with Kim White on this one.
Yeah, thank you, Dave. You know, my work for the past 11 years at River City Company has been downtown development. It wasn't neighborhood development. Chattanooga Neighborhood Enterprise is a great partner that did a lot of that work. But again, I want to use the same skill set and same tools to actually go into the neighborhoods and look at opportunity. I've looked at C&E's plan of what they've done. They've done a great job about looking at a framework of what needs to happen in the neighborhoods, what neighborhoods need investment. So there's no doubt that we can bring partners around the table in order to make sure that we get affordable housing in each particular neighborhood. So I think that's a huge opportunity, is to really look at partners that have been in that arena for a long time and bring additional resources to make sure that we can kickstart that.
Mr. Kelly?
So I've been doing work in low-income communities since I returned to Chattanooga in 1989. One of the first things I did after graduating from Leadership Chattanooga, the program, is join the board of the newly formed Westside Community Development Corporation, which was concerning itself with the revival of the College Hill Courts neighborhood. And I worked hard on that for a number of years with Judge Walter Williams and Sarah Morgan and others. I was on the board of Big Brothers Big Sisters for many years, working in low-income neighborhoods and in the Black community. The Girls Club, I was a trustee at Benwood working on a lot of these issues. I was the chairman of the Community Foundation at a time of great transition when we were working on a lot of equity issues, so much so that I made Racial Equity Institute training part of our actual board training there, which we thought it was so important to the work that we really couldn't do the work without understanding that perspective. And so this is a huge part of why I'm running for mayor, again, is to close these gaps and to create one Chattanooga. So thank you for the question.
Any rebuttal, Kim White?
I would say, you know, I've had a lot of experience working on boards that deal with low-income neighborhoods, but specifically what I've done to actually move the needle on that with development, I haven't. But Big Brothers Big Sisters, the Erlanger board, looking at UTC. So, I mean, I think there absolutely has been a lot of crossover with some of my work. And we plan to use all that experience to actually bring more equity into the city.
All right, we're at halftime pretty much, so I'm going to talk just for a little bit, give both you candidates a chance to kind of take a deep breath and relax and prepare for the rest of it. For those of you who are just tuning in, wherever you're watching, on whatever platform, this is the Chattanooga Mayoral Runoff Debate, sponsored by the Chattanooga Times Free Press and WRCB. And we are gearing up for the April 13th runoff election. Early voting starts March 24th. And if you have some friends or neighbors who are interested in this race, get in touch, send them a text, give them a call, let them know this is on for the next half hour. All right, this next question is going first to Tim Kelly. The data was released yesterday showing a more than 80% increase in unsheltered individuals in Hamilton County from last year to now. And it is attributed to the COVID-19 pandemic, climbing rental cost, and the lack of affordable housing for low-income people. So here's the question. How do you address this dramatic increase in homelessness?
Yeah, look, Dave, it's a terrible problem, and it's one that has increased the most of anything since I began the campaign last year. It's an epidemic in Chattanooga, and just today we had a press conference down at the courthouse steps because there were 53 cases in court today for eviction, where people were being evicted, and thank goodness we are going to continue to support the city's program to appoint advocates to stop evictions during the crisis until the economic effects of this subside, because the costs are severe. And again, it's not just a moral or cultural problem, it's an economic problem. Data shows that for every person who's evicted and put out on the streets, the social costs are $8,000. So it's a terrible problem. I have experience serving at the community kitchen. I have firsthand experience with the community with homelessness. And again, this is one of the reasons we need somebody with crisis management experience and real management experience to tackle this most difficult of problems. And I will do just that.
Kim White?
Yeah, thank you. There's no doubt that the homeless issue has grown. It's grown all over the country. We've seen it grow in Chattanooga. There are 40 agencies working in the homeless arena. Mayor Burke has started pulling together a coalition to make sure that we're all working in concert, and that hasn't been happening. Signal Centers was just given the contract to be the backbone agency to help work and coordinate those efforts. So the number that was given was 326 homeless families. I think Chattanooga has solved so many bold issues. This is one that we need to hold that number out there. And if we have 40 agencies and city government working in that arena, we certainly can figure out how we can solve the homeless issue with 326 families. I know we also have a lot of transient homeless, which is a whole different issue. But I think it is making sure that these agencies are working together and focused on getting them housed. It also ties into my affordable housing plan, making sure that we actually do have enough affordable housing to take them from homelessness to housing. And that's where my plan of 700 units comes into play.
Tim Kelly, if you'd like to take 30 seconds for a rebuttal.
We can move on to the next question.
All right, Dave.
The next two questions are directed to you as individual candidates, and we'll give the other candidate a chance to respond a bit. But a citizen says, this first question for Kim White then. Citizen says, and I quote, "I moved back to Chattanooga for 15 years and I find the state of the riverfront very sad. So much turnover and empty storefronts. While you were CEO of River City for the last 11 years, you touted the fact that there's been $1.2 billion of new investment within our downtown area. And yet in recent time, particularly during the pandemic, there's been some unevenness in that development, some empty storefronts, restaurants, condominiums. Why do you think that's happened? And as mayor, what would your plans be to sort of revitalize the riverfront and downtown and make Chattanooga a destination for tourists again?
Sure. Thank you, Dave. I mean, there's no doubt that downtowns are never finished, and the cities ebb and flow. And there had been a lot of energy, even before COVID, gone to the south side. River City Company had started a plan. In fact, they're in the middle of it right now, or maybe toward the end of it, called the One Riverfront Plan, really looking at how we really rejuvenate. It has been 20 years since any real effort has been spent on the riverfront. Part of it is actually looking at what's needed now and working with partners to get it revitalized and more effort gone back into putting more resources into it. I think that we're going to work with partners like River City Company. We're going to work our small business focus of how we actually recruit businesses back down there. But COVID has really shined a light in every single city about the importance of making sure that we have small businesses that are thriving. And that's one thing that my administration is going to do. But there's no doubt that there needs to be an additional emphasis. And we have a great organization that does that, River City Company, that's going to look at how we actually revitalize. We also need to look at how we program our parks. And so that's another piece of that.
Kim Kelly, do you want to offer any assessment of how River City's done?
Look, I mean, River City is there. It's a great organization, and it's done some great things. I think Chattanooga's got a long history of public-private partnership, and River City has had its moments, both good and bad. But look, I think if you go down Market Street and look at the vacancies, you have to be frustrated and disappointed. So I think we can do better, and we will do better.
Kim, do you have any response?
Well, I would say right now that there's small businesses closing all over the city, and it's not just downtown. We've seen it happen everywhere. So again, it's a focus of how we actually go out, and our playbook for day one is how we actually go out and make sure that we're bringing resources to small businesses and make sure if they want to grow their business or expand, that city government is set up to do that and bringing them the resources. So we're going to focus on that in every single part of our city, but it's not just downtown that's hurting on small businesses, it's everywhere.
As Dave mentioned, these questions, back-to-back questions, are to the individual candidates. Tim Kelly, this one's for you, and Kim White will have a chance to respond. You are preparing to move your Southern Honda Power Sports business into a new $10 million dealership on Ringgold Road in East Ridge from its current site in Chattanooga to take advantage of the border zone tax breaks. Is East Ridge a more attractive city for business than Chattanooga? And what, if anything, should the city of Chattanooga do to prevent local businesses from moving out to nearby areas with lower taxes? And the question from a citizen is, how can you be chief promoter of Chattanooga and try to lure business to Chattanooga when you moved your business out?
Well, I should say this. I mean, we created Southern Honda down there on Workman Road. I took a dealership, a small mom and pop dealership that was selling 10, 12 units a month, and turned it into the largest Honda power sports store in the nation, and it has been that for the last 20 years. So it was an extraordinary story. And it was in a place where nobody would have thought that were possible in terms of retail locations. I began to consider moving that dealership long before I began to think about this mayor's race. And very frankly, as a business person, I'm going to do what's best for the business. The Border Region Development Act, which was created by the state of Tennessee, is there to help attract businesses to do battle really with other states, neighboring states. So the only two municipalities that took advantage of it were Kingsport and East Ridge. So look, that is where that business belongs, out there in a cluster with other like businesses like Camping World and so on. I have 5 other businesses in Chattanooga, all of which are producing millions of dollars in sales tax and have produced that sales tax. And I'm proud of my record of creating jobs. I should say too that the sales tax created for education, even out there in East Ridge, will benefit Hamilton County schools, and so will continue to benefit the city.
I'm going to have to cut you off. Kim White, you have a response?
Well, I will say for sure, the mayor is the chief promoter and recruiter for our city. And we have to recruit against people that give incentives all the time. So I think it is very hard to sell your city when you yourself has moved a business across the line. I think the biggest issue I have, and that's a personal business decision that he made, is that just a month ago at the Hicks and Kiwanis, Mr. Kelly stood on the steps and said he said it was a great deal. And he encouraged other people, if they generated sales tax, they ought to look at that deal. So he's running for mayor. And I think that we shouldn't be asking people to look at other opportunities outside our city.
And Tim Kelly, you have a chance for a rebuttal.
Well, I would say there's a limited amount of real estate on Ringgold Road. And so it's just about gone anyway. The boat's pretty much full. And the fact that look, there are limits there to keep businesses from just being able to hop the line. If you read the law, you can't just move it over. The business has to meet certain requirements in terms of larger size and throughput. And so it's not as simple as all that. I would be Chattanooga's chief salesperson. That's why guys like Charlie Brock are supporting me, because they understand that they could put me on a plane and send me on a recruiting trip, and that I would do the best job for the city.
The city's created tax increment financing districts to provide property tax breaks, spur developments on Black Creek Mountain in East Chattanooga at the former Harriet Tubman housing project, and for the extension of the West Emil King Boulevard into the riverfront and downtown. Do you support the creation of more of these TIFs, giving property tax breaks to encourage development? And specifically, would you support taxpayer money going and being used for a stadium for the Chattanooga Lookouts or other sports teams? Mr. Kelly, what's your views on TIFs and city aid for a stadium?
Well, look, TIFs and pilots are important tools to attract economic development, but they have to have, look, I'm a big fan of the but-for rule, right? Would the development happen but for the incentive? And every project has to be evaluated on its own merits. And it's just as simple as that. I will say, if we do those, and this is a place where I think Ms. White and I differ, I would make sure that we have a community benefit agreement in place so that if we're using public money to incentivize these projects, those jobs and the labor and the vendors and the contractors will be local. It doesn't make much sense to use local taxpayer money to incentivize a job where contractors and labor are driving in here from Atlanta and Charlotte and Nashville and other places. So I think that's why I have the support of the building trades and a lot of the local unions, because I am a localist first and foremost, and I want to make sure that any public expenditure benefits local people.
You're at time.
Kim White, your response.
Yeah, thank you, Dave. I do believe that TIFs and pilots are an important tool to have in the toolbox, but I think that we need to have a more transparent process, and they do need to provide significant community benefit. Where I would differ with Mr. Kelly, he obviously doesn't know we have a labor shortage going on right now. If we said it had to be local labor, we wouldn't be building anything right now. It's tough. I think that we should have a preference, and we definitely want to keep tax dollars here. Our whole goal is to grow the tax base, and we need to do everything we can to do that. So I think that TIFs and pilots should be used when they can provide community benefit, but that the process needs to be more transparent. I think there hasn't been a very good job talking to the public about why we're doing them or what the outcome is. But we can't put too many rules in especially as far as local trades. We can't get trades right now in our community. So we'll have a process. It will be transparent. We'll make sure we communicate it. But we do need to have tools in the toolbox.
Any rebuttal, Mr. Kelly?
Yeah, well, look, I would say the journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. And until the mayor stands up and asks for local benefit, it won't happen. Again, this is not an easy job being the next mayor. And so this has to happen at the same time that we recommit ourselves to skilled trades education, and that, and the city really aggressively supports building a pipeline of talent coming into skilled trades so that we can increase the supply of labor, because that, back to a previous question, is how we rebuild the middle class and how we build wealth in Chattanooga.
You're at time.
And Kim White gets the next question first. How will you address the vast inequities in median family income between Black and white families in Chattanooga and the displacement of communities of color?
Well, Dave, there's no doubt that we need to bring and recruit more jobs so we can create pathways and create wealth. And that's what I'm focused on. How do we actually go out and recruit jobs, help small and medium-sized businesses? And how do we actually do workforce development? Right now, there's 2,300 vacant positions in our city. And we have a lot of people that want to work. I mean, we have a workforce training issue. And our plan is to actually go out into the neighborhoods, make sure that training program is there. There's great companies doing things like Southern Spear and Miller Industries that have apprenticeship programs and training programs that have great pathways. My goal, and I think the way that I could use my background with business and my contacts in the business community, is really to work together to create a big network, a broad network, so people can actually see ways that they can grow wealth and careers.
All right, Tim Kelly, your chance to answer the one about the vast inequities in median family income between Black and white families.
Dave, I'm the only candidate tonight that has been talking about this issue since the very beginning of the campaign. It is one of the reasons I'm running. We have 2 Chattanoogas and we need to create one. The gap in household income is over 30% larger than the already great gap nationally. And in net worth, I think it's almost 10 to 1. I have very specific plans to increase home ownership in the Black community, where only 37% of African Americans own their own homes in Chattanooga, where it's 62% in the white community. We can and we must create ways, both loan guarantees and credit guarantees and capital pools and second mortgages, that will allow to increase that, because that's the nest egg of anybody's net worth, is home ownership. We've got to, I'm a small business. I taught entrepreneurship at the university. This is at the University of Tennessee, Chattanooga. I know how to do this, right? And so I will work with the community to create entrepreneurship and support entrepreneurship, particularly in the African-American community.
Kim White, do you have a response?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's not about platitudes, it's about plans. And that's what my campaign's been all about. If you look at all the plans that we have under our issues, it is actually how we're going to actually get things done. I have a history of getting things done. And what I've said I'm going to do is we're going to recruit jobs. We're going to help small and medium-sized businesses. We're going to bring opportunity to every single neighborhood. And again, my campaign has been about the neighborhood, making sure that we actually close those disparities. I'm committed to do that. I have a history of doing what I say, and I look forward to the opportunity to bring opportunity throughout our city.
In the runoff elections, several of the candidates highlighted the relatively low ridership now, particularly during the pandemic, of car to bus service and some of the challenges of cutbacks in the coverage area that they've had over the past few decades, which some say is not servicing communities who may need public transportation. A reader asked this question, and this will be to Kim White first. Do you agree with former candidate Monty Brule that car to buses should be free in order to help working people with the elderly without cars to get them to jobs, schools, and grocery stores beyond the pandemic? Should CARTA be free? And if so, how will the city and others pay for that?
Yeah, thank you, Dave. I think CARTA is one of the most underfunded public transportation systems in the country. Part of the issue is not just the cost of it. We can do all kinds of things with vouchers and cards, and I think those are things that we will do. The issue is making sure that the routes go where people need to go. It needs to go to their jobs. CARTA has not been part of the planning process or at the table as we look at recruiting jobs and growing our city. I made a commitment to make sure that CARTA is a major piece of how we actually plan our city. Again, part of the infrastructure piece, they're going to be getting some extra funds that we can look at how we can have a multimodal system that really can make us a lot more efficient. So I think it's more about the routes that we have, and then we can look at how we do vouchers and cards for people that actually need to get to their jobs and can't. But I am committed to putting more funds into CARTA and working with them as a partner.
Tim Kelly, should CARTA fares be free?
Yes, they should. At least on main routes. And we've committed to that very early on. And I should say, when we're talking about plans, again, I've spent most of my time in this race, not raising money, but working with community leaders on extensive and detailed plans, which have been on our website for months. This is not something we've thrown up in the last couple of weeks to tell people what they want to hear. We have a very specific transportation plan that addresses these issues. This is an area where, as is often said, it's expensive to be poor. If you have to get around by buying a car from a buy here, pay here and paying 25, 30% interest, it's deadly to economic development. People can't get to jobs. So we've got to make CARTA work for everybody, and we can do that. My plan calls to create a CARTA app, which will make it more usable. It is also about creating a hub, a switching station, but primarily it's about reintroducing people to CARTA. And I think the best way to do that is to make the main routes free, and that's what we've committed to do.
Kim White, any rebuttal?
Yes, I mean, unlike my opponent, I can't write a check to be mayor. So I've been out there having to multitask. I've had to go out and raise money, get people to buy into my vision, and people buy into your vision with dollars and with votes. And we've gotten dollars from every single zip code in the city. So I've been working on plans, I've been raising money, and as a mayor, you've got to be able to multitask and sell your vision, and that's what I've been doing since I announced.
I call this one the crowning achievement question, and it goes to Tim Kelly first. Many of our recent mayors can point with pride to the aquarium, to the downtown and riverfront development or Volkswagen, and they can say, that happened on my watch, or that wouldn't have happened without me. So let's look down the road, 10, 20 years. Your term as mayor is over. You've done everything that you wanted to do. What do you think you will be able to point out and say, that is my crowning achievement?
Well, I mean, David, as I've said from the beginning, this is not about me. I'm not trying to enter politics. I don't know if my opponent can say the same. I have zero future political ambition. This is not about my ego. This is about making Chattanooga the city of its promise. So I'm not interested in physical monuments. I think this question came up very early on in a forum, and it didn't take me long to answer. It's really, again, healing this divide between Black and white and rich and poor in Chattanooga, and building back the middle class in Chattanooga, but specifically a Black middle class. That's what I want to do. And if I could point back to one thing, it would be that. And again, that sounds simple, but it involves a real commitment to early childhood education, to skilled trades training, to affordable housing, and to economic development. Again, not just for developers, but for job creators that will lift the whole city up.
Kim White, what would you like to point at in the future and say, that's my crowning achievement?
Yeah, David, I think my crowning achievement would be if people in every part of our city could see their voice in Chattanooga's story. I mean, one of the things that I've heard over and over again is people don't always feel like they're a part of the city. And that's why I've really focused on going out into the neighborhoods and hearing what people's dreams are. I know how hard I worked when I came back to Chattanooga to have a seat at the table. I had to earn that. I had to try to find my way at the table. I want to make sure that we bring more people so they have a seat at the table and they have a voice in what our city looks like in the future. So having people feel like they are part of our city, this very special city that people love so much, that would be a crowning achievement. I also want to say, Mr. Kelly keeps acting like I'm running for another office. I've done nothing but work for Chattanooga the whole time I've been here. This is all about civic leadership, making this city the very, very best it can be. I've never said I have any plans for any other public office. I'm running to be mayor and to be sworn in on April 19th.
Tim Kelly, you have 30 seconds for rebuttal.
No rebuttal, except to say that not clearly stating that you're not interested in future political ambition tells a message in and of itself.
Mr. Kelly, this question will go to you first. And often a newly elected leader will pivot or change or even turn back the policies of his predecessor. Are there programs or initiatives of Andy Burke in his era that you would like to replace or roll back?
Look, Andy's a really smart guy, and I think for the most part has been a good mayor. I'm an admirer and a friend. I do think that the city, particularly over the last year, largely perhaps because of the pandemic, has kind of lost the thread in terms of management and the provision of services to citizens. So again, I think my expertise really is in organizational management, and I think it's the difference between a skill set of well, anybody else really, and somebody that's run and built small businesses. Folks may not appreciate, except people who've done it themselves, how difficult it is to create an organization from scratch and gear it up and have it achieve things with limited time and resources. So I'm a big fan of Andy's. I would keep the collaborative public input of the budgeting process. I'm particularly fond of what he's done to get us to 1,000 seats for early childhood education. I think that's a huge first step. I would plan to double that. Listen, I think it has to do more with focusing on blocking and tackling.
Kim White, is there anything you'd roll back of the Burke administration?
No, Dave, I think the biggest thing is making sure we streamline processes. I mean, city government has become so difficult to do business with. And I think the fact that I've worked beside city government with an outside-in view for the past 11 years, I know what's broken. Employees would probably from the inside would tell you the same things. It's like, how can we jumpstart things again? I also think I would strengthen partnerships. As someone that was a partner to city government, how do we actually bring more people to the table and empower the faith-based community, the nonprofits, the foundations, to make sure that we're all pulling the same way. So I think it's strengthening partnerships, really looking at how we streamline so we can jumpstart our economy again.
Any final 30-second comment, Mr. Kelly?
I would just say again, I am again, nonpartisanship for me doesn't come with a wink and a nod. I could work with the federal government and the state government equally as well. I have a great relationship with Jim Coppinger, and because I don't have future political ambition, clearly stated, what I'm interested in always and forever is the best interests of Chattanooga. I think if you look at our donor base and our supporters, mine is very, very broad-based, demographically, racially, in every way, shape, and form, and my opponent's isn't.
We're just about out of time, and we are going to reserve a minute for closing statements in just a moment. So I'm going to use a little bit of moderator privilege here and ask you one final yes or no question. And Kim White, you'll get this first. It's a yes or no. That's all you have to say. And the question is, if elected, do you intend to attend city council meetings on a regular basis?
Yes.
Tim?
Absolutely, yes.
All right, we've got it on the record. There you go. I want to, before we get into closing statements, again, thank you both. And of course, thank Dave Flessner, our co-moderator from the Times Free Press. We're going to give each of you now a chance to deliver a 1-minute closing statement. If you feel like there's been any unfinished business, or if your opponent has taken a little shot that you didn't get a chance to respond to, here's your minute. And Kim White, you go first.
All right. Well, first, I want to thank the Times Free Press and WRCB for sponsoring this debate. I also want to thank our moderators for highlighting some critical issues that we face. But I want to give a shout out to all that's joined our campaign. Your contributions and volunteer work really make a difference, so thank you. I want to thank Mr. Kelly. We may differ on background and approach, but we both want our city to fulfill its potential. Let's work to reject partisanship and division, and yes, sometimes even the hate that can pit us against each other. Let's work to ensure that that everything we do benefits all of our citizens. Let's work to find the best in each other. As we enter into the final phase of this campaign, we must not forget that while we're a city of many neighborhoods, races, and beliefs, we also share much common good. We will rise or fall together, and falling is not an option. Chattanooga is truly a great city, and when we work together, we are unstoppable. I would greatly appreciate your vote for our positive vision, and thank you so much for the opportunity to share my vision tonight.
Tim Kelly?
Well, I'll start by thanking Kim as well. I think Chattanooga is an extraordinary place, and despite the barb here and there, we've managed to run a very civil campaign, and I hope we will always continue to do that because, again, you look at other cities around the country and they don't do it this way, and this is the right way to do it. Chattanooga is an extraordinary city because it's full of people who share this vision of community, and so thank you, Kim, for that. I would just say, look, one of the great things about this race and having 15 people in it, although it's been brutally exhausting, I know Kim agrees with me on that, is we arrived at a set of what I would consider to be the right answers. We're talking about the right issues for Chattanooga. That's not really a question voters should be concerned with. The question they should be asking is who can actually do the things, who has the background and the experience to actually execute these plans and do the things for the best interest of Chattanooga, because we only have 6 days between Election Day and the time we take office to be ready to go. And very frankly, I think that's why I have the endorsement of over 200 community leaders, the firefighters, and almost every other candidate in this race.
All right. And Dave Flester, let me give you a chance to say something here at the end. I want to say I'm a longtime reader and admirer of yours. It's an honor to be a part of this debate with you, and I just wish we could do it in person.
As do I. But thanks, candidates, and thank you, David.
And we'll wrap it up by just saying that our thanks to both Tim Kelly and Kim White. And we want to remind everybody early voting starts Wednesday, March 24th. It runs through Thursday, April 8th. Election Day is Tuesday, April 13th. And if you missed any portion of this debate as we have aired it live, you can watch it anytime on timesfreepress.com and WRCBTV.com. That's very important to remember. Also on our Facebook pages and YouTube channels as well. Now, viewers submitted many questions tonight, and you may have noticed that we weren't able to get to all of them in a 1 hour time period, but the Times Free Press and Channel 3 will work to answer those questions as we continue to provide coverage of the mayoral runoff race. And again, thanks to the candidates and their teams for participation. And we want to thank you very much for joining us, and go vote.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Good night.
Thanks.